Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yep. So my name is Alex Martin, and I'm a science fiction author. I've been writing books for 16 years, and I am the founder of Experience de Leona and Sidewalk Science Center, where I take science experiments and telescopes out into public parks and let people try them out for free, learn about the scientific method, test some experiments out, and just get a conversation going and get in people's hands.
Yeah, I've been seeing your updates on Twitter, and it's amazing work you've been doing. I think recently you announced that you had crossed kind of a significant milestone with like over 100 sidewalk.
Yeah, so the telescope portion. Yeah, so I've been doing the telescope for about a year and 5 months now. It was like last June that I started that portion, and what 15 months, 16 months, I've gotten up to 100 sessions of that. And I've done Sidewalk Science Center, like the actual table with experiments. I've done that one a total of 137 times throughout 16 different cities right now, but with my home base mostly. So
That's awesome. I know how important like that hands-on experiential experience is. Boy, I think I used experience a little bit too much there. But I mean, the thing that you see in books and on TV and in the classroom is so theoretical. You don't actually get as much hands-on experience with it.
Yeah. So like going through, I'm just gonna kind of go back in time for a bit. Like going through elementary school and middle school and high school, I was always a good student. As it goes, like I was always top of the class. I got great SAT scores and everything. But then college hit, and my like student work ethic just wasn't there. And I was busy writing my books and stuff, and I did terrible in college. I was a horrible college student, and part of it, as the years go on, I kind of realized, it's because so much of it was from just studying and like reading the books, and like very few experiment labs and stuff. And then like as I became more in love with science communication and like teaching people about this and like putting this into my own words and doing my own like kind of research through these topics, and then talking to researchers and scientists around the world, going to a conference in Finland with education and ecology, and like meeting people. First time I'd ever traveled internationally, so it was like people from all over the world, and like really got this whole new experience that then led shortly after that into Sidewalk Science Center, and getting to teach this with a hands-on approach. Whereas you don't see this outside of museums, you don't see this outside of festivals. Festivals are like once, twice a year in certain areas, and this is something you can come by every single week and test something new out, or just learn more about the sky and actually like watch the planets traveling across the sky. So it's a very your own eyes, your own hands kind of approach.
That is fantastic. How long ago did you get started with that?
So my most recent 3 books, which I don't have right now, when I wrote the second one in 2014, I began developing a website with it. And that website, when the book was published in 2015, I used that website as kind of a way to put extra content. You would read the book, and then you could go into the website and learn more about the world, see more maps and stuff. And I kind of like made like some fictional science like equations and theories that they would use in the books to travel through space, and like the barrier theory, how they travel faster in light and stuff. So that I kind of ran with that from like 2015 to 2017. And then in 2017, I began blogging about real science on the website, and I would like publish a couple essays on the website. But within a couple months of doing that, I actually came across, I was doing laundry in my apartment in Savannah, Georgia. I'm down in Florida now, but I used to live up there. And I came around the corner, and my bathroom light was on, and the door was kind of closed. So what I saw on the ground was, the door was acting as a single slit, and the light bulbs that were on in the bathroom were making lines across the floor. I'm like, it was these perfectly straight lines. There were 8 of them. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, I've never noticed this before. What's going on? And I open the door, all the lines disappear, the light spreads out, and I close the door and the lines reappear. And so I made like using Snapchat back then, made a little Snapchat video and like kind of learned, this is what happens when point light sources are, coming in from different angles. So their waves of light are each going through the slit in the door at a certain angle and creates those individual lights, plus the reflection of those lights acts as its own wave source. So that kind of got me into doing videos on YouTube. And then a couple months later, I was like interviewing people on the street, like talking, just like stopping people, hey, you want to talk about science for like 10 minutes and short little portion of a video and guide them through a few questions, just something relatively easy and make videos about that. Went to that conference in Finland, came back, and within 3 weeks, I was doing Sidewalk Science Center with experiments instead of videos.
As you were talking about the wave slit, a random idea crossed my mind that I should share with you, and that is, how we have the noise canceling headphones that kind of like produce the alternate waves. I was wondering if with like steady light sources, it might be possible to produce like light canceling glasses or something.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing. I can't think of it right now. Like I feel like there is some, because I mean that's how we create color. So colors are just combinations of waves. So I'm sure if we twist physics and do something special, that there is a way to dim something down somehow. but it's an interesting theory. I'll say that, interesting concept.
Yeah, I guess most people are like, if you want to, like, maybe you should just do like that if you got. But can you give some example of the scientific concepts that you most frequently talk about?
Yeah, so one of the ones I started with at Sidewalk Science Center was the Magnus effect. So this is, sometimes you see this on videos and stuff where they take a basketball and they drop it from a really high spot and they spin it. And, it kind of goes down, but then starts curving outward. And, this is all about air friction and pressure differentials and the spin, the rotation of the object. This is how you throw a curved ball in baseball is, you rotate it. So its axis is pointing straight up and down. And as it's spinning, there's air friction going around the ball, drags it, and kind of creates like a pressure on one side, high pressure on one side, low pressure on the other, and pulls it inward. So with this experiment at Sidewalk Science Center, you tape 2 cups together. I don't have it's all in my car. You tape 2 cups together and have a rubber band, and you wind it up like a yo-yo, shoot it like a slingshot, and you can make the cups fly up in the air and slowly drift back down. Or you can do like a boomerang where they go out and come straight back to you. You can do them in like the baseball configuration where they're pointing straight up and down and they have curve in a circle. So it's really cool, get kids doing it, you get people trying it out for the first time. Some people, they get it on the first try. Some people, it takes them 50 tries. It's like, sometimes it just like nails people's hands and just flops all over the place. So in that way, it's like you're teaching the concept, but then you also have to learn the technique so that it actually works. So that's like one of the longest running that I've had since 2.5 years ago. But now it's more into, I've added some new ones where there's like one all about balance and you have to stack these discs on top of each other by remaining really steady and getting them all to slide into a tower. The probably the most fun one right now is it's called a spill knot, and another name for this is a Greek waiter's table, where it teaches about centripetal force. And if you're carrying a cup of water, or I have my coffee right here, so you have a cup of coffee and you're walking, trying to get to your room or something, and it's sloshing back and forth, or this is in your car and you go over a bump and it sloshes. How can we stop that from happening? And what's called the Greek waiter's table or the spill knot is essentially just a little lever system with a pulley at the top, and it swings back and forth freely so that it's moving with angular force, and that angular force creates the centripetal force that's perpendicular to the direction of the motion, creates that kind of artificial gravity, you could say. And then all the forces are pointing down into the cup instead of sloshing back and forth, and it creates, so it hardly moves. You can swing this thing in circles, you can like jerk it back and forth, and it just does not spill. So it's kids have a lot of fun with that one.
That is really neat. Yeah, I wish I had some coffee cups that had that technique. Maybe it would have like a locking mechanism, so it's like in the swing free thing while you're carrying it around, and then
Yeah,
you when
yeah,
you're
just a little
drinking it,
switch or something. Yeah.
yeah, that could be kind of cool. A lot of shirts would have been saved with that. um, well, after people get excited about science at your cafe, w- like how do you guide them to something to take it to the next level? What does that look like?
Yeah, so especially the telescoping, I guess I'll preface this with people come back a lot to me. I would say 5% of the people who show up come back regularly, like if not every week, then at least twice to three times a month. And then most of the people I get are brand new every single time. Then you get your word of mouth people, you get your people who have been here before, but they bring different friends every single time. And especially with the telescope, you get a lot of people. There's a local astronomy group around here, and they're like, "Oh, are you affiliated with them?" Or, "No, I've heard about this astronomy group. I've never had the chance to go out." And I always kind of tell people, because I'm doing it in a park where there are bright lights everywhere, so you can see the planets and you can see some of the bigger like star clusters. But I tell people, use me as like your introduction, and then go visit them when right now everyone who's like a big group is shut down, but like use me just as the introduction, the gateway into like getting more involved with a larger group that would go out once a month with different types of telescopes and different people from different backgrounds, and being able to see deep sky objects in perfect black skies at their different locations. And then it's there's a reason I'm doing it in public with lights around, and I'm not trying to be super fancy. I'm just trying to get people in front of a telescope and introduce them to this, because I get so many people who've never looked through a telescope before, and adults and kids, and like it's really no stat that's different between them. Especially rings of Saturn, people love seeing that. You've had your people who look through smaller telescopes and they can't see that. They look through this and they're just blown away by it. So opens their eyes to that too. It's just, yes, they're actually there. It's not a cartoon.
I think what you're doing is fantastic, and we have the North Houston Space Society that I'm a part of, and I'm thinking we should be doing the same types of things that you're doing around here in the Houston area.
It's I know someone in Houston, and this year I wasn't going to go there this year, but probably next year. To do Sidewalk Science Center out there. And it's like one of the things with Sidewalk Science Center is I want this to be in cities everywhere. And I mean, for me personally, I want to be paying people to do it. So it's like it's awesome to inspire people to go out and do it on your own, but it's also, once this is a large enough thing, then we can like be paying people to actually take it out there on a regular basis and be trained, be familiar with the sky, be familiar with the experiments, and have these in cities just couple times a week. I mean, I do it right now on a near daily basis. So I'm like the exception to my own rule, but 2-3 times a week is what I wanted to settle into.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I was just thinking, like college students might be a good, college and high school students might be a good kind of job for them as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But I know a lot of people that would probably do it for free if the structure was set up.
Yeah, so I mean, right now I'm in LLC, so not nonprofit. So that's part of the reason too. But my other whole thing with this is I want to help to increase the financial value of being an educator. So yes, volunteers are nice, and I do get my people who come by regularly and help answer questions and stuff. But I think just increasing the value of education, getting higher paid education jobs, and like really establishing a standard for the quality and the quantity of what level I think, especially here in the United States right now, like what we need to be setting a standard for. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel though that in some ways money's kind of spoiled our motivational system as a society. Instead of asking, what's of value to do, the question that often gets asked is how much money will it make, which
yep.
seems like the
Yeah.
completely opposite way it should be done.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been until May, I was doing this totally for free. So I didn't start paying myself until May. So I almost went 2 years for zero. So I'm like, now it's becoming kind of a thing where it's sliding into a part-time job kind of pay right now, but I'm hoping in the next year or two it'll be a full-time thing for me. And then I want to hire someone in February to really start helping out and like increasing growth and being able to run two at the same time instead of just, oh, I'm not gonna make it to here, but I'll be down here. And because I started out in the city that I live closer to, the town that I live closer to, I started out, being there all the time, and now because of COVID and how I've kind of reined back Sidewalk Science Center because it's such a hands-on thing, all the experiments and stuff are so hands-on. I've been only doing it like 2 to 4 times a month now, and the telescope portion I've been doing a lot. Like I've done it 40 times since July already, and it's like if I could get that into 2 cities simultaneously, that's a great starting point. Then 3 cities and 4 cities. So it's like getting other people on board with all this would just be awesome.
Yeah, I can see several business models that would work for this. I mean, one is of course keeping it as a nonprofit and people just donating.
Yep.
But even in addition to that, having it as a gateway to like science and math related curriculum and camps and that type of thing, and it's more of a marketing activity as a feeder into those other activities that bring in the revenue.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
Even like the astronomy clubs and the national space societies and all those things, I could see them kind of seeing as a way to maybe promote their interest. I mean, it could be a good kind of gateway referral network type thing.
That'd be great.
Well, how often does space exploration come up in your discussions with people?
Yeah, at the Sidewalk Science Center portion, unless there's like something bigger in space going on, like 2019, we had Apollo, we had a couple Falcon Heavy launches, so it was like it came up a little bit more than this year. we I mean talked about actually crew demo crew, whichever direction that goes. I wasn't running Sidewalk Science. I had shut it down when that went off, so it was like I didn't really get to talk to the public about it. But with the one coming up in November now, and also when we sent Mars 2020 back in July, it was like I was sliding back into the routine of things. So especially at the astronomy portion, it's obviously a much bigger topic. You get your people who are like, let's focus down here. You get your people who are just go out there and like explore and like so trying to not keep them separated, but like bridge them together. Like, why is all this important to us? And obviously being in Florida now, lots of people are able to watch rocket launches from across the state. So you'll hear the people, and just put chairs out in their backyard and just wait for that dot to appear if it's a clear day or something. So that's something else I want to do too, is in the future be able to like fund trips for big groups of people to go watch a launch or something, like take school groups or something out there and to Kennedy Space Center and on a launch day or something. So
Yeah, that would be awesome. I was just thinking about some of the science experiments that they do on the International Space Station and kind of like their counterparts here on Earth. One is like the whole kind of crystal growth for the X-ray crystallography that
yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah,
and a whole bunch of other things. But so just out of curiosity, when did you hear that we were planning to go to the moon in 2024?
Yeah, so kind of always. I mean, you hear like the rumors and stuff throughout the past decade, and then with Bernstein, especially like now that all this talk has been going on, and SpaceX is like set for humans, and I'm not the biggest fan of SLS, but it's still moving. so like I've just always been in the space community. So of course I've always heard, we're planning to hit the moon now, we're hitting the moon now. So 2024, I think seems like a reasonable time to for NASA to be able to do it. Like SpaceX, the 2023 mission to go around the moon, I think if they can make that happen with Starship relatively quickly, then that would be a really cool sight to see. The live streams coming off that would be amazing. Like, but with getting on the moon, like we definitely need a presence there, and I have been a big fan of Breinstein, and I just think he's like so respectable, and he's very encouraging of exploration, and been a big supporter of SpaceX and like government versus private partnership. Like it's refreshing to kind of see someone who's actually invested in keeping up a space program and moving it forward, and not just with ISS, especially the last couple of weeks where things are not. It's like scary to hear like, oh, the oxygen leak or something like that on the ISS. Like it's coming to the end of its life. Like we need a presence out there. So to have someone who has kind of that vision where yes, we can make a permanent presence in space, and not just an ISS going around, but like multiple stations, like getting people on the moon, setting up bases there, like make this the window of opportunity, and make it something in our lives so that eventually more people can get up there.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, seeing what SpaceX been doing in Boca Chica with the Starship, and just thinking about, I visited Boca Chica last September, and I think it had like 2 tents and, kind of like just one little launch mount, and now it's like an entire city. And
no. And they have the NASA test article there now, the top of it, at least.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny. The other two teams that are competing for a human landing system, I guess, already provided their test articles, or at least their first test articles, about a month ago. So they're running a little bit behind schedule on that. And it's kind of scary because NASA's already talking about down selecting the two, possibly at the end of this contract. So you're like, got fingers crossed. But I don't think SpaceX really cares that much about being selected. I think they were just wanted to be like, get that credibility of being part of the first round.
Or even like, SpaceX is in it, let's get other people in it. Like helping to be that push because they know that they have influence like that. So and either way, with or without NASA, they'll be doing it. so
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just feel like, Starship is probably going to be in orbit next year. I think it's still a race of which launches first, SLS or the first Starship.
when we say which one which one launches first, like with people, is that what we're saying? Or
oh no, without people. I mean, because the first SLS is not going to launch without people. It's going to launch without people. So
okay,
yeah.
I'm still hedging Starship.
Yeah, me too. I'm like,
always hedge Starship. But I think they're doing their 20-mile test next week. Is what they're planning for right now. So
it definitely looks possible. I feel like driving down to Boca Chica. It's only 7 hours away. I work from home. Everybody's working from home. Why not?
Yeah. I'll just swim across the Gulf. Like,
yeah.
I'm like right in line. I think they're a little bit south of me, but like it's that direction. So.
Well, maybe the hurricane after Zeta go across the Florida Peninsula, suck you up and drop you off in Boca Chica. Could be like Dorothy in Kansas type of situation. Sounds kind of traumatic. Always kid with people about the SpaceX Starship would be able to take you from like Houston to Beijing in like 30 minutes, but it'd take you a week to recover from it.
Okay. Big roller coaster.
Exactly. Most of the people I've talked to that's not been in the space community had no clue we were going back to the moon. So I think you're well positioned to help change that.
Yeah, so actually launch pins. They just sent me some like defunct pins that they had, so get to pass those out the telescope now, and it's like it's really cool because there are people who come by who like had never really used a telescope before, and now they're becoming like experts at talking about this to other people. And I'm just like, when you first showed up, like you had no idea, like even what I was saying, and now it's like you're hashing out this information to people, like you're calling people over, you're telling them about what they're seeing and stuff. And it's like so cool to see people who like have never used telescope before, like really weren't paying attention to this and just like happened to stop by or happened to walk by that day. Now they're like talking about it. So it's kind of cool to see that kind of influence, that reach getting out there. So
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. I mean, they, it's kind of like you have an effect on a group of people, and then they have an effect on another group of people. So, and then they have a group on an effect on another group of people, and it spreads over time. It's like little stones in a pond, just kind of radiating outwards.
yeah. There's a family that comes by. They haven't been around in a while, like 2 weeks now, but they came by for like 4 or 5 times, and the son, the oldest son, he actually there's a picture with the girl who had like the unicorn, and she was dressed as a princess with the alien. It's them. So like their oldest son, I gave him the chance to like take a picture of all the planets that we can see and the moon and everything. So now he has like his own series of pictures of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the moon, a little bit of Neptune because it's only a speck in the telescope. But so we're kind of waiting on end of November when Orion comes up at an earlier time, and you can get a picture of the nebula. There are a couple other people. There's this one Sarasota teacher that she comes by every single day because she goes on her walk, and she's like sent her daughter my way. There's this couple that lives in where I do it in Bayfront. There's a boat, like a whole dock, a whole marina, and this couple walks their Chihuahua every day, and I see them every single day. So now it's like they bring their friends. They like their friend from Chicago came down, so they all came out and did it. So it's like people who were never involved in it are now like in their life, several times a week. So
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, it just feels like it could lead into like some type of like experimenters club where people are like doing their own little experiments and kind of
yeah, and building. I've heard people want to build their own DIY telescopes. Like even before coming to me, like they tell me their plans for this, and it's like if you do that, bring it here. Like sit right next to me. So
yeah, and they would inspire other people. They're like, man, he could do it. I can do it.
yeah. So
Um, so if it was safe and affordable, would you go into space?
yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
So I don't know if I'll ever get to Mars. Like that's obviously a dream. If I can make that happen, I would make it happen. The moon for sure. Like I will go there in a heartbeat. I just want to get out there, like see the Earth kind of thing. Like with my company, with Experience Steel, like yeah, I have Sidewalk Science Center. I have a few other programs also. I have another one that I want to start for like environmental stuff. But then one of the ultimate projects I want to get to is put a telescope on the moon, a permanent telescope that it's like in its own little observatory or something, and like help to subsidize people getting up to the moon, like trips up to the moon, and have that there for public use essentially to turn around and look back at the Earth because we spend our whole lives, our whole civilization has just looked up there. Like, well, if we had a telescope and turned it around, so kind of use that as like a symbol, I guess. So
yeah. Hey, and I don't think take that much to do it with the commercial
yeah,
lunar
no,
payload services
yeah,
program providers. I mean, for like $450, I'm getting, oh, you can't see it, but
yes,
that's kind of here we can do this. Yeah, a terabyte micro SD card,
oh,
uh,
it's cost is way down.
which this video is going on and will be on the moon next summer. So just on the Astrobotic lander. But I mean, if you could make like a really small, self-contained, I mean, I think the biggest problem is going to be like temperature,
Mhm.
the temperature swings.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of something that was like a wing of a base or something that like a commercial wing or like anyone who visits, like just people visiting the moon would be able to go in there and like that's what you do. You go to the moon and turn around and you look back at the Earth through a telescope. Just same thing we do down here, just that way.
Exactly. You're looking at people looking at you. You're like,
Yep.
uh, but Have you ever heard of Space Hero?
No.
So it's a reality TV show in the works, that to go
Okay.
and find somebody around the world to send up to the International Space Station for 10 days.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That I didn't know. I thought it was called something else, but maybe there's another thing. But yes, I've heard of a very similar thing, if not that. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I was pretty excited, but it looks like they're still in the very beginning stages, not yet funded or have their program together. But it's so funny, the conversation about, hey, do you think we should be going to the moon? What about poverty and global climate changes? Do we think you should be going to the moon? Yes. When do I sign up? It's like complete shift in terms of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a book that I have called Overview, and like there's I forget his name who coined this, but my friends Mary Liz and Ryan, they like interviewed him and they kind of do like their own documentary series, and they film all the launches. They're the ones with like the tracking telescope that follows the rockets as they launch, and but this book that I have is like a giant square book, 12 by 12 or something, and it's all images taken from satellites down the Earth, and some of them are like recent images, and I say recent, it's probably this book was published like 6 or 7 years ago, um, but then it has like comparison from like decade or two ago versus today, and like how the landscape has changed, how cities have been built in certain areas, how like rivers have shifted, how seas have like changed color, just the impact of human society on the planet, or vice versa, like where human society was, and then nature's kind of reclaimed it as people left or whatever. So it's a very, very cool book to see, to like go through these pictures and like the scale of civilization or the scale of nature just side by side like that. So to see that in person would just be incredible. I just
Yeah, I'm just wondering, between the pandemic, Starlink, kind of global political um, uh,
going
threats,
on. Yeah, yeah,
and all those types of things. If cities aren't going to be on the decline, it's like, why be in a city if you could do everything online and get anything you want and
yeah.
what have
Yeah,
you.
it's gonna be interesting to see the societal ramifications, especially in the modern age, because obviously this has happened in the past, but this is a completely different arena where we have the ability to not need to be grouped together and still function. I guess in some ways, like obviously there are some jobs and services that can't just disappear like that, can't go remote, but people's mindset about companies. I think is it Microsoft who is giving like all of their employees who don't need to come to their offices, like they can just stay home from here on out, and there's like a select few that have to come in. So I think I heard that on the radio. So
But I know the company I work at, we're at home indefinitely. So it might be next year before anybody goes back to the office. And at some point you're looking at the cost of having an office and you're like,
yeah,
do we really need that? You know?
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be. It's like, I mean, I'm careful when saying this, but with COVID, my day job was definitely impacted. Like my pay went way down because I work in a museum, and closed the museum, and we had project time, but it wasn't anything nearly what it was until we got like PPP for a couple months. So that kind of held up for a bit, and then it went away, and then I think we just got another round last month, so it's like taking effect starting in November, because our attendance and everything is so far down. But being a museum, you rely on people attending, especially for like what I do. Is when you're a tour guide, it's a very different experience. Like you can give planetarium shows like on computers. Like our planetarium manager, he uses some program to do like 360 shows on people's computers and stuff. But for someone whose job requirement is essentially take people around the museum, like it's a very different experience doing it virtually versus walking around and like seeing the scale of it like next to you, and it's a bit different for sure. But then Sidewalk Science Center had kind of like the opposite effect, where I have a graph of all my sales and everything, and like what I've been doing. And aside from when I shut down Sidewalk Science Center itself in person for like half of March, all of April, and half of May, there's this empty blank space where nothing was going on. But online revenue and like kit sales, because I make science kits with this, and events and stuff, like private events, like skyrocketed. And it's like this end of it went fine. It's just was kind of counterbalanced by my job in decline. So, and we're still not like to full capacity yet. And it's difficult when you're stuck in one spot for the whole day because you can't do anything else. So
I was wondering if y'all consider or maybe you already do this, kind of the concept of a virtual tour of the museum where
they just put that together. Like it was a meeting on last Thursday. so it was like, we're starting to book that. The thing with it is like I said, like it's so much different because you can't get the scale of everything next to you. You can't like touch things. You can't, see get the whole texture of everything. Whereas we're presenting more as like a slideshow with like a video and one of us talking. So it's different. It's certainly something new that we're testing out. But at the same time, like a lot of our exhibits are like revolving exhibits too. So you go in there so that you can like see these photographs up close and personal, not just on the screen or something. We just had I think it was called Small Wonders, and it was insects that this guy named Bob Sober, he takes pictures of them, like hundreds to thousands of pictures of insects to get this super clarity, and he like prints them out on big aluminum sheets. And I mean, they're spectacular, but you can look them up on Google, but in person, they're as tall as a human in person. So it's like there's so much detail that you can't get if you're just looking at them on a computer. So you have to kind of figure out ways to improve that experience, I guess you would say. So
yeah, I guess part of the challenge that you're really showing is people are like, why do we need to send humans to like the moon and to Mars and space? Why not just send robots and take pictures? And like you were saying about the museum, regardless of how good your camera is or display, you still don't get the full experience. I mean, it's like you're on this trip and you're like by this huge mountain and you take a picture and you show it to somebody and you were like in awe whenever you were there, but it's not quite making it across.
Yeah. And that's part of the thing too, is, I mean, I am absolutely not victim. I'm absolutely guilty of this. Is I do tend to take too many pictures, and I've been kind of scaling back when I take trips and like go to parks and stuff. Like I just don't take the phone out of my pocket. I just absorb it, just take it all in. And with rocket launches, even like I'll have like my camera and my phone. I'll just like be watching, but I'll have like my hands like going up as the rocket goes up or something. But I've like started learning, because I don't have any like fancy equipment. I don't have a DSLR. It's just my phone. That's all I use. And so it's like I'm learning like how to, in different spots when I visit the Space Coast, like where to set up that I can like kind of angle my phone a certain way and get the entire launch in there, so I don't have to distract myself. When I saw the eclipse, like I did, the sin of watching an eclipse for the first time, and I had a recording and I was kind of live streaming it, and I was watching it with my own eyes, but I was doing it for an audience at the same time. And does it detract from it? Probably. It's a trade-off of, I guess, in that way of like communicating with other people who don't have the opportunity to see it. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out ways to do this again in 2024, April 8th, 2024, when the next eclipse happens. Like, how can I structure this so that people who can't make it to the line are able to have this experience without taking away from my experience? So yeah, that's something I've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah, is a challenge. It kind of reminds me of the same challenge you have with kind of like these hybrid meetings of being in person and virtual, and not all the participants are both. It's almost like yeah, one always gets the short end of the stick.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually next week. I was supposed to be in Berlin for a conference, and I'm like, I've been to one country outside the United States, and that was Finland, and that was for a conference. And it's like, yes, it's exciting that we can do these conferences, on Zoom and whatever. But for me, that was the first time I'd ever been out of the country. Like that was an experience in a whole other culture for me. And I've never been to Berlin. I've never been to Germany. Finland is the only country. So it's like, what's the trail for yes, we can do conferences virtually. Cost goes way down. We don't have to do carbon emissions and stuff. But there's also, this is why it's so important to kind of switch our infrastructure, like transition into a clean energy economy and stuff, because the traveling, especially when it was an ecological conference, like traveling from the US to Finland, that's a big toll in scale for carbon emissions for a conference about reducing carbon emissions. So you have to figure out how to create this economy on clean energy where you are able to take these trips and go to these conferences, if nothing else, for the cultural experience, and for just having the experience of being with groups of people from different backgrounds in a new culture together. So maybe it has like the cost saving effect of being virtual, but you're losing almost like a sort of personal growth kind of way. So
Absolutely, and it's all about developing relationships,
yeah,
which
yeah,
having a shared Finland experience. Like, you remember that time we went to the cafe and we were like trying to ask for a napkin and they brought out the sugar? Just like those little events sometimes have ways of binding people more than, you know, excellent technical
yeah.
content.
That's, I mean, I'm still in contact with, I mean, there were like 5 or 6 people that I like became really good friends with. I'm still in contact with like 4 of them to this day, 2.5 years on. And it's like, I'm acquaintances with the others. Like we still have, contact on like Facebook or something. We see each other around, but like talking to all the time and stuff is like, if I had not been there, I wouldn't have met these people and like gone on those hikes together, like had those experiences that kind of solidified relationships to kind of like network and everything. And so I miss it. It's like one day I'll go meet them again. But
I
so
know. I miss it too. I miss doing these interviews in person. This is meant to get me out of the house because I work from home every day. But since March, it's been a more at the house. But at least I get to have a substantial conversation with somebody. And but it would have been nice to meet you in a coffee shop. And
yeah, no, seriously, I totally agree.
well,
So,
Alex, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
um, I think covered pretty much everything that I had been expecting. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to your Houston event. I hope you'll
Oh
send me an
yeah.
email and invite me along. I'd love to come out there and see what
Actually,
you do.
for the 2024 eclipse, right now, my most solid plan, my most likely plan is to go to El Paso. Is it El Paso is in the line? So I think that's kind of like where I'm kind of targeting right now. Because I'm kind of in talks with Greenbelt, Maryland, um, when they're communicators for NASA. They launched the solar probe and everything in February, and they invited me to come down to. I'm pretty sure it's El Paso. I might be misremembering that, but that's like their plans that they're going down there. So I might be going along or finding some other place in the middle of the country. So not going to Niagara Falls because that's really packed.
I could imagine. Yeah, I mean, and if you do go to El Paso, Fort Davis is a few hour drive away, and the McDonald Observatory is there. That'd be
Yeah,
worthwhile. Then
cool.
Van Horn, Texas, where Blue Origin has their launch site for the New Shepard and test facilities around, but not really sure how much of that a non-Blue Origin person could actually see. Uh, but
Yeah. We'll find a way.
We'll find a way. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with your science cafe, sidewalk cafe thing,
Sidewalk Science Center. Yeah.
a
Yep.
sidewalk science center. And yeah, if you have anybody that you can send my direction, especially if they're not a space person, I'm really I like talking to space people for sure, but I was kind of looking to get as much of a collection of everyday people's views, and doing it online is definitely kind of uh, meant that I had
Helps
a
out the picking. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because the first thing you walk up to a Starbucks and say, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" You know, the chances are they're not like a real big space person unless
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. No. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I was. I mean, when I was making my own videos and just like, you want to talk about science for 10 minutes, like, so
Well, that's cool. But
cool.
thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day.
Yep. And you too, and good luck with the rest of the project. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to see this go up next year, or part of what you're sending up there next year. So
Yeah, me neither. I hope it lands safely.
yeah. All right.
Okay, bye bye.
Yep. See you.